I'm lucky I don't depend on monetizing these videos. I mean, besides the fact that I might be lucky to get a couple dozen views. Golgo 13, Kamigami no Koukon, or Golgo has got a few things that'll make the YouTube algorithm drop me even harder than it already does. It's got a sex scene complete with 8-bit topless woman, and I won't overtly spoil the final boss, I'll just let you know that saying their name would also cause this video some problems. Of course, I do have 2 more games featuring that person coming up in the next month. Golgo 13 was the longest continuously running comic in Japan, starting in 1968 and going on hiatus in 2020 due to the pandemic. It's about Duke Togo, world's greatest assassin and international man of mystery. He has globetrotting adventures as he hunts down his targets. This isn't the first Golgo 13 game. That one is a simple arcade shooter, and Golgo 13 Kamigami no Koukon definitely is not. To start with, we have a very long introduction sequence. A helicopter in New York is shot down by someone who looks just like Duke Togo. The CIA doesn't think it's him. They think it's the KGB, and bring Togo in to investigate. If you want more details, the game came with a comic book explaining the entire plot. By far the most interesting thing about Golgo 13 the game is how it's trying for a cinematic experience. For example, your gameplay is divided up into episodes. I don't mean the levels are divided up into episodes, I mean your gameplay. When you start the game, you're playing episode 1, and when you run out of health, it doesn't tell you game over, it tells you to be continued, and lets you know what's coming up on the next episode. After you continue 50 times, the 52nd time that you play is the conclusion. So 52 episodes, or 2 seasons of a show. It's bizarre to do it that way, but they were really leaning into their gimmick. The cinematic experience extends to the settings. The game begins in East Berlin, and you can see things like the Brandenburg Gate. Then you head off to Athens, where you have to visit the Parthenon. Then you head out to the Aegean coast, and later episodes take you further afield. I got to Act 5 out of 13 in the hour I was playing, and that's because this is a pretty difficult game. In fact, I'd say it's unfairly difficult in a lot of places. Now, just because there's 13 acts doesn't mean that there's 13 stages. Golgo 13 has 6 completely different gameplay styles crammed into it, and the acts tend to be wide-ranging, having you move between a lot of different actions. The gameplay starts on the streets of East Berlin, with Togo able to walk around, jump, and kick. He has a gun, but no bullets, so he has to defeat enemies to get bullets. The enemies in the side-scrolling sections tend to hit you pretty hard, and screwing up jumping over a shot generally means that you get hit a second time. Killing an enemy always gets you some bullets and a bit of life back. The maximum life is 200 and the maximum bullets is 400. Your life also ticks down, but it's so slow that it didn't really affect me at all as I played. As you're walking around, sometimes you'll be ambushed. The ambushes are much easier than the encounters you have walking around. They do less damage and give you back a lot more health and bullets. They always occur in the same place, and they reoccur, so I recommend using them to refill. During the ambush, you can freely move your view around. Just put the crosshair on top of somebody and shoot. The next game mode is this shoot-'em-up segment. You still have a life bar and bullets here, though. I found it kind of difficult to hit people in the shoot-'em-up stages, and a lot of the enemies just soak up bullets. In these sniping segments, you have to scan around until you find the target, hit B to zoom in, and then take them out. These underwater segments are a weird hybrid of the side-scrolling action and the shoot-'em-up. They also feature the ambushes. The final game mode are first-person mazes that you have to explore. You'll encounter guards in the maze, and you have to hit the A button to bring up a crosshair, point at them, and hit the A button again quickly. If a wall slams down in front of you, you have to press the A button to throw a grenade at it. You can only carry 3 grenades at a time, and you get an additional one from defeating guards. The thing about Golgo 13 is that none of the play modes work very well. There's always problems like taking too much damage, having difficulty hitting things accurately, slow movement. None of them are good, and they all have different problems. Maybe the most annoying thing in the game is how when you're in the walking around segments, it's not always clear what you can go into and what you can't. Those portions of the game require that you go to certain locations and talk to people, and identifying those locations isn't necessarily easy. The total result is a game that's not good, but it's interesting. There's a few more bits I need to point out before I wrap up. During the infamous sex scene, which is there in the NES version, right before she takes her clothes off, she says adults are going to do adult things, kids should press the B button. And if you press B, it skips that scene. And of the stages I played, the underwater base was the absolute worst. You have to shoot your way through these laser turrets that have a lot of life. I tried jumping past them, and I wound up taking even more damage than I did by shooting them out. Golgo 13 was not a popular game in Japan, but it was very successful internationally. That resulted in a sequel being made a few years later. When I have a tough call on a game like this, it just comes down to, would I play it again? And yes, I would play Golgo 13 again. In fact, I've been meaning to get a boxed copy because I like the artwork for it so much. Still, I couldn't blame anyone for bouncing off of this. There's a lot of rough edges on this game. But it's also interesting in how it's trying to push action-adventure games on the Famicom forward.